to know. Oh yeah, we need to show. Listen, watch, and flow. You need to.
I need to know, I need to know, I need to know. You need to know, you need to know, you need to know. We all need to know. What do we all need to know? What do you need to know? What do I need to know? This book in the Bible is very controversial. The book of 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 11 to 12 that says, let the woman learn in silence. You underline learn in silence. Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. But I suffer, that is Paul says, I, Paul, suffer not a woman to teach, nor to absorb authority over the man, but to be in silence. So what is the biblical interpretation of this verse, chapter? So that we are not going to be teaching and preaching in error or heresies. The historical context, no doubt about it, the author is Apostle Paul. Silent audience is talking to Timothy, whom Paul left in Ephesus to oversee the church. You can study that one in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 3. So the setting, the church in Ephesus are facing false teachings. They are facing false teaching according to the book of 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 3 to 7. And disorder in worship. They are facing false teaching and disorder in worship. Chapter 2 and 3. So women in the Greco-Roman and Ephesian culture had limited formal education. And some may have even been influenced by false teachers. 2 Timothy 3, 6 to 7. So literary context. Chapter 2 deal with public worship. Chapter 2 of first is dealing with public worship. Prayer for all people. Men praying without anger. Likewise, women dressing modesty and instruction on women's learning and teaching. That's what chapter 2 is talking about. That is 1 Timothy chapter 2. It's talking about a public worship. It's talking about prayer for all people. It's talking about men praying without anger. It's also talking about women dressing modesty and instruction on women's learning and teaching. So Paul's transition, that is Paul's transition into church leadership qualification in chapter 3, showing the connection with order and teaching. So there must be order in church. Therefore, you must be able to understand the keynote, the key word in English for you to be able to understand what Paul is actually saying. He says silence. When you know silence is in Greek is called hesia, which means not absolute silent, but quiet. Silent is better. Is not absolutely that you have to be silent, but you need to be quiet when things are moving or things. So therefore, you must be teachable. Teachable spirit that is used also in the verse 2 for peaceful living. So subjection, he also mentions subjection. Therefore, voluntary submission is voluntary submission or alignment under proper order. You don't force them to submit. It's voluntary submission. It says subjection, that is voluntary submission. Also teach the dasking. Teach the dasking. Well, that is formal doctrinal instruction. Formal doctrinal instruction associated with church leadership. He also talked about observe authority, which is authentane. That is real Greek word, meaning to demeanor, take authority improperly or act in a controlling way. So now, what is the meaning of this passage? Paul instructs the women in the Ephesus church. Paul instructs the women in the church of Ephesus should learn, that is, they must be able to learn a radical affirmation in the culture. Women were often excluded from formal instruction. Another meaning is about they are to learn with humble. Women are to learn with humble, teachable spirit, not in disruptive or domineering way. That's what Paul is saying there. Also, Paul restricts women from the role of authoritative, teaching and ruling over men in the gathered church, which ties into the instruction about elders. 1 Timothy 3, 1-7. This seems to relate to preserving church order, doctrinal integrity, and a creation order. So what is the significance of that verse? So affirmation of women's value. Affirmation of women's value. Women are encouraged to learn and grow in faith. Don't forget, the women in Ephesus church, they are not lettered. So Paul is now telling them that they have, before they can attain that role, they must be lettered. So role distinction. Scripture reflects functional distinction. In church leadership, that is teaching authority, roles assigned to qualify men. So creation order. Therefore, Paul rooted this not only in culture, but in Genesis 13-14. You'll be able to see true interpretation differ on how this applies today. Safeguard against false teaching. In the context of doctrinal confusion, order in teaching protect the church. Therefore, the common interpretation that people are now spreading across these churches today is that absolutely the women should silence. No, Paul is not saying they should silence the women permanently. He said they should be quiet so that they be able to learn. Paul is not forbidding. Paul is not forbidding all speech. Women pray, women prophesy publicly. When you study the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 5, women pray publicly, women prophesy publicly. The issue is authoritative teaching. Paul is the issue there is authoritative teaching and leadership role. So cultural irrelevance only. Some argue this was just for first century Ephesus, while cultural factors are present. Paul's appeal to creation suggests a principle beyond culture. Devaluing women. This text that we are reading has been misused to silence women entirely. Yet Paul honors women as a co-laborer. Application today. How do you apply this verse today? How do you apply it? That is, women discipleship matters. You have to disciple women. Don't forget, among the 70 that Jesus sent, there are women. So churches should ensure women are taught and equipped as disciples of Christ. Respect church order. Churches must design ability, that is biblical, how teaching and leadership roles are structured. Respect church leadership in order. That is, churches must design biblical how teaching and leadership roles are structured. Guard against misuse. Guard against misuse. This text, that this Bible text, should never be used to demean women or deny their spiritual gift. This place must not be used that women is totally forbidden to preach. Women is totally forbidden. Are we not having dignity and dignesses? So we must not. This text should never be used to demean women or deny their spiritual gift. Balance with the New Testament. Balance it with the Old New Testament. Women served as prophets. Women served as deacons. Women served as leaders in the early church. So there are women that are deaconess. There are women that are prophetess. In fact, what about even in the Old Testament? Deborah. What about Esther? They served and they became leader. They became leader. So balance it with the whole Bible. Women serve as a prophet. Women serve as a deaconesses and leaders in early church. Their contributions are vital, though the role of elder, the role of pastor is still debated. They are still debating it. So 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11-12 teaches that women are to learn with humble spirit in the church, not exercise authoritative teaching over men in the gathered assembly. The focus is on order, doctrinal integrity, and creation design, not on silent or demeaning women. God bless you. God be with you. I believe you have learned one or two things. Put your comment down. As you do so,